What happens when a movie meant to break barriers accidentally becomes the thing it was trying to rebel against? Hey, it's Darcy from Ladies First, and today we're talking about Juno, and how this quirky indie darling became 2007's most controversial teen movie, sparking debates that still rage today. 16-year-old Juno MacGuff lives life on her own terms in small-town Minnesota, and she's about to face the ultimate test of that independence. After one impulsive encounter with her sweet tic-tac-obsessed friend Polly Bleecker, Juno discovers she's pregnant. What begins as teenage curiosity transforms into a life-altering reality that she tackles with characteristic wit and determination. Her first instinct is abortion, but the clinical atmosphere and judgmental staff at the family planning clinic make her feel more like a case study than a person. Walking away from that sterile environment, Juno chooses adoption instead, approaching her pregnancy with careful planning but emotional distance. Through newspaper classifieds, she finds what seems like the perfect solution: Mark and Vanessa Loring, an affluent suburban couple desperate for a child. He's a former musician turned jingle writer, clinging to his rock star dreams. She's meticulously organized and aching to become a mother. Juno promises them a clean break, baby delivered, no strings attached. With her father Mac and stepmother Bren providing steady support, Juno navigates 9 transformative months. But her neat adoption plan unravels when she realizes the Lorings' picture-perfect marriage is cracking. Mark begins seeing her as an escape from adult responsibilities rather than simply the mother of his future child, ultimately abandoning both his wife and fatherhood dreams. This crisis forces Juno to confront her own carefully guarded feelings for Polly and question whether her practical approach to an unplanned pregnancy can survive when perfect families turn out to be illusions. The story behind Juno's creation reads like a Hollywood fairy tale with a twist. Diablo, Cody's journey from stripper to Academy Award winner happened so fast it seemed impossible, until it wasn't. A producer discovered her through her provocative blog about working in the sex industry and suggested screenwriting, an idea she initially dismissed out of fear and self-doubt. When Cody finally sat down to write, inspiration struck in the most ordinary place: her Minnesota kitchen. She imagined the most awkward scenario possible: a pregnant teenager interviewing uptight yuppies to parent her unborn child. That single uncomfortable moment of role reversal became the foundation for everything that followed. Writing in a Starbucks inside a Target store, Cody poured her own teenage experiences into the script. She dated a boy exactly like Polly, befriended cheerleaders like Leia, and even owned that iconic hamburger phone. She based Juno on her younger self, though she admits she was never quite that cool or confident. Director Jason Reitman knew this was his film after reading just half the script. He immediately envisioned Elliot Page as Juno and fought to secure the project despite having no feature film experience. Major studios initially feared the controversial subject matter, but that fear proved unfounded when the film found its audience and changed everything. Nobody predicted Juno would become a cultural earthquake. Opening in just 7 theaters, the film earned back its entire $6.5 million budget in 20 days, 19 of which were in limited release. This tiny indie eventually grossed $232 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing Best Picture nominee at the Academy Awards. Critics fell hard for the film's authentic voice. It earned a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and landed on countless year-end best-of lists. But the real impact went far beyond box office numbers or critical acclaim. Elliot Page felt the cultural shift even during filming. The simple act of letting a pregnant teenager dress comfortably instead of hiding in shame represented something revolutionary. This wasn't just another cautionary tale about teenage pregnancy, it was authentic representation that treated young women as complex human beings rather than moral lessons. The film presented something audiences had rarely seen: a pregnant teenager who was funny, sharp, and unapologetically herself. That representation would soon spark a national debate about influence, responsibility, and the power of storytelling. Then came the backlash that would define the film's legacy forever. In 2008, when 17 students at a Massachusetts high school became pregnant, Time magazine coined a phrase that haunts the film to this day: the Juno effect. Suddenly, politicians and professors debated whether Juno was glamorizing teenage pregnancy. The controversy exploded during the presidential election when Sarah Palin's 17-year-old daughter Bristol's pregnancy became front-page news. Juno had transformed from entertainment into a political weapon in America's culture wars. Critics argued that films like Juno made pregnancy look easy and appealing to impressionable teenagers. Psychology professors claim the media was promoting pregnancy as redemptive, solving problems rather than creating them. The film that celebrated authentic teenage voices was now accused of manipulating them. But this moral panic revealed more about adult fears than teenage behavior. The assumption that young people couldn't distinguish between fiction and reality or process complex narratives with nuance said everything about how little faith adults had in teenage intelligence and decision-making abilities. The defense came from unexpected sources. Jason Reitman, who played Mark Loring, pointed out the absurdity of blaming entertainment for personal choices, arguing that people should look to parents, teachers, and friends for guidance rather than movies. But the most devastating counterargument came from hard data. Centers for Disease Control statistics showed that teen pregnancy rates actually dropped 2% between 2007 and 2008. There was a Juno effect. It was the opposite of what critics claimed. The data revealed something crucial. Depicting teen parents doesn't glamorize them, it humanizes them. Rather than offering simple answers about complex reproductive decisions, Juno showed the emotional weight and difficult choices involved. The film's optimistic tone didn't erase Juno's struggles, it simply refused to shame her for them. Academic analysis later revealed the film's sophisticated approach to pregnancy stigma. While certain visual choices, like transforming Juno into cartoon imagery when buying a pregnancy test, suggested lost innocence, the film simultaneously challenged harmful stereotypes. Unlike typical teen pregnancy narratives focused on despair and helplessness, Juno remained visible, unashamed, and complex. Her sharp critique of euphemistic sex education exposed how adult discomfort with teenage sexuality creates information gaps rather than protection. By 2017, the political landscape had shifted dramatically, and Juno's creators were ready to make their values explicit. On the film's 10th anniversary, Jason Reitman organized an all-female live reading of the script as a benefit for Planned Parenthood. The event felt like a direct response to attacks on reproductive rights. Elliot Page and Jennifer Garner reprised their roles alongside Kristen Wiig, Tig Notaro, Tracy Ellis Ross, and others, creating an evening that celebrated both artistic legacy and political resistance. When Reitman introduced Diablo Cody, his emotion was visible as he thanked her for changing their lives with the film. The benefit raised crucial funds while making a clear statement about where the creators stood on reproductive freedom, a position that would become even more urgent as political tensions escalated. Setting the record straight, the misinterpretation of her work haunted Diablo Cody for years. The overturning of Roe v. Wade in 2022 finally pushed her to speak out completely. She emphatically declared her lifelong pro-choice stance, admitting that misreadings of her work horrified her. The wake-up call came early when a Catholic school administrator thanked her for writing a movie aligned with their values. Cody's horrified reaction revealed everything. Her objective as an artist was to challenge conservative culture, not uplift it. Looking back, Cody understands why people misunderstood the movie, particularly the clinic scene that reflected her own teenage fears, shaped by anti-abortion propaganda in schools. Her perspective has evolved dramatically through personal experience, but she stands by her work while clarifying her intentions. When she wrote the script in 2005, reproductive rights seemed secure. She created without political agenda, never imagining those rights could be threatened. The innocence of that time feels impossible to recapture, but the film's impact remains undeniable. Here's what the critics missed. Juno wasn't promoting teenage pregnancy, it was promoting something far more radical. The film dared to suggest that teenage girls are capable of making complex decisions about their own bodies and futures. It argued that young women deserve authentic representation that doesn't reduce them to cautionary tales or moral lessons. The real Juno effect wasn't about pregnancy rates or political messaging. It was about expanding what teenage stories could be. Before Juno, pregnant teens in movies were either tragic victims or moral warnings. Juno showed they could be funny, smart, complicated human beings deserving of empathy and respect. The film's greatest achievement wasn't box office success or critical acclaim, it was proving that audiences hunger for authentic teenage voices. In a media landscape that often talks about young people rather than listening to them, Juno centered a teenage girl's perspective and trusted viewers to engage with complexity. The controversy revealed more about adult anxieties than teenage behavior. The assumption notion that young people couldn't process nuanced narratives without making impulsive decisions reflected profound disrespect for teenage intelligence and agency. Juno trusted its audience. The critics didn't. 15 years later, as reproductive rights face unprecedented threats, Juno's message feels more urgent than ever. The film that accidentally became a political lightning rod now stands as a reminder that storytelling matters, that representation has power, and that trusting young people to make their own choices isn't just good filmmaking, it's fundamental respect for human dignity. The real question isn't whether Juno influenced teenage behavior. It's whether we're brave enough to tell stories that treat young women as full human beings deserving of agency, complexity, and choice. Juno answered that question with a resounding yes, and that's why it matters more today than ever before. So what's your take? Do you think Juno still resonates today, or does it feel like a relic of the 2000s? Let me know in the comments, and if you love diving into female movies that sparked cultural controversies, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Ladies First.